Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Last Friday I posted a question on my community page here looking for questions about homeschooling because I know that this channel started out as a homeschooling channel, and that's really what the first couple hundred videos were about. And if they weren't about homeschooling, they were at least about education. And I know that I've kind of morphed more into a channel about questioning the narrative, which I think really fits in nicely with homeschooling. But I didn't want to abandon my homeschooling community, those people who come here specifically for those videos. The reason that I had taken so long to make a new homeschooling video and why I haven't been doing as many is just because I've run out of ideas. I have several hundred homeschooling videos and I feel like I've hit on every single topic. So I asked all of you for some ideas, some questions that you have about homeschooling, and some of them, yes, I have answered in earlier videos, but I'm going to answer them again today just because it's easier to find the newer videos. I do encourage you though that if you have questions about homeschooling, go through my homeschooling playlist. There is so much there. So anyway, today we're going to focus mainly on school district bullies, burnout, and my thoughts on college. So if you see me looking over there, it's because I have my laptop out in front of me so that I can read the comments right from my channel. So the first question that I have, and I want to point out this is not going to be my only video like this. I'm going to do several homeschooling videos where I am answering the questions that you all pose to me in that community tab. And it's going to be, over several weeks. I'm not going to be doing them, every video. I'm still going to be putting my question the narrative videos in there. But my Homeschooling 101 videos, at least the next several, are all going to be about answering your questions. So first of all, we have Brandy, and she said, "Oh, I have so many. First, I just want to say I absolutely love your channel. Thank you very much." The first question, because she, like she said, she has several. The first one is, what are some documentaries that you would recommend? Just started Drive Through History and my children love it. Would love to add more to the list. Well, first of all, I have to say that, yeah, I used Drive Through History with my daughter as well. And I think that, I forget what his name is, but he's pretty funny. My daughter, on the other hand, she's like, "Mom, he's really corny." And I'm like, well, corny is my sense of humor, so it works perfectly for me. So yeah, Drive Through History was a good one. I do have to say that, you know me. I know that it really does follow the narrative. And even though it's not the secular narrative, it is still something that we have questions about in the way that our history is presented to us. So when I did use Drive Through History, I alternated. This was my daughter who was she was either a junior or a senior at the time. She did Drive Through History one day, and then the next day I would show her a John Levi video. So we alternated between Drive Through History and John Levi because I wanted to, get those videos in there that really encourage people to question those things that were being taught. At the same time, though, I think it's important that they do watch videos like Drive Through History because it is important that they know the history that everyone else knows as well so that they don't look ignorant. So on that note, I also enjoyed using Liberty's Kids, which can be found on YouTube also with my children. And I will leave everything that I mentioned here. If there is a link to it, I will leave it here. So that includes documentaries, videos. I'm going to be talking about board games in a bit. But anyway, just always check down in my description box because I always do leave lots of links to related videos or maybe resources that I talked about. But anyway, yeah. So Liberty's Kids I use with my children when they were learning about the Revolutionary War. For science, we love to use Brave Wilderness, which is also on YouTube. That's lots of fun. It's about, wild animals, insects, that sort of fun stuff. Magic School Bus. They've taken a lot of the episodes off of Netflix, but I think that you can actually find some on YouTube. I have to say, though, that with Magic School Bus, there are some episodes that I just won't show my children, like the solar system ones. So, you have to just watch and see, which ones you want to use. So what I do is I don't have them indiscriminately watch Magic School Bus. I will usually tie it in with whatever we're learning about. So for example, in August, we're going to be learning about bees. So we're going to be watching the Magic School Bus videos about bees. A few months ago, we were learning about the human body. So we watched the Magic School Bus videos about the human body. So really, if you're just choosy about it, it is a really good resource. The next thing is the Who Was show and you can find this on Netflix. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how much actual history they're really going to get from the Who Was show. It's comical and it does throw some mainstream narrative history tidbits in there. But again, it's hard to discriminate between what is reality and what is not. But at the very least, I think the Who Was show really helps children to be interested in history, because one of my problems when I was in school was that I was not interested in history at all, because it was just taught in such a boring manner. So things like the Who Was show, it really does help children to think, I want to learn more about this person because that's pretty funny. So that's another one that we have liked. And the last one is a YouTube channel called Oversimplified. And that one, it gives you an oversimplified version of, for example, I think we used it for the Revolutionary War. And that one is probably better for older children, maybe high school age. And it will give them, like a basic understanding and of whatever topic that you're choosing, and it will do it again in a more interesting manner than if they're just reading it out of a textbook. So those are the recommendations that I have on that. So the next question that Brandy has is, do you think every homeschool family should become a member of HSLDA? And that stands for Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And on that, I am going to say yes. I will say, though, that it is a Christian organization, so they do require that you are a professing Christian in order to join. I love being a member of HSLDA because it gives you such a relief, because you know that if the school district or if anyone else is going to get on your back about things, HSLDA will be there for you right away. And yeah, these school districts, they don't want to deal with HSLDA because they're phenomenal. So the next question is actually related to that, at least to me. What are some ways to combat bullies or pressure from the local school district? Well, being a member of HSLDA is a huge thing in your favor when you're dealing with that, because all you have to do for most school districts is mention that, okay, well, I'm just going to contact HSLDA and see what they have to say about this, and they will usually back off. Now, some other ways though to combat the bullies or the pressure from the local school district, and I have to say that some school district employees really don't know better. They just don't know the homeschool law. So they might start asking you for things that are not required by the homeschool law. But there are also others who really do push because they don't like homeschooling. So they want to get as much information as possible. That's why it's so important that you know your state's laws. Every state has different homeschool laws. Unfortunately, I live in a state that is considered a highly regulated state. It's not as bad as people make it out to be, though. But I did deal with, at our old school district, after they changed our law in 2014 and they made it a bit easier. We had less things to turn into the school district, and the school district was still asking for things that they were no longer privy to by law. And so when I went in there to turn in our paperwork and they asked me for that, I said to them, as of 2014, that is no longer required by law. And they said, okay, and I never heard from them about it again. But for about 2 years after that, when they would send out the letters at the beginning of the year, they would still request that information that they knew that they were not privy to, just because they knew that there are people who don't know what the law requires. And sometimes some people do know what the law requires, but they will still bend to anything that the school district says. And to that I say, don't do it, because if you start doing it, they're going to start expecting everyone to do it, and they're going to start getting after everyone. So that's why you need to be your own advocate. Yes, have HSLDA, but really at the very least, if you're having an issue with the school district, you can just do like I did. You just tell them that is not what the law requires. Most of the time they will back off, but then you can have HSLDA, kind of as a backup plan. And another tip that I have, if you need to turn things in, like we need to turn in affidavits and objectives, and at the end of the year, we have to turn in a homeschool evaluation. And I used to just take it into the district office myself, but that was when they would ask me for the things that I was not required to give them. So what I recommend that you do is just send the things to your school district through certified mail so that you have a receipt that it was sent to them. But that way, if you are not going into the office, they can't be there pushing you, trying to get things from you that they're not supposed to be asking for. Let's see. So the next question is, how do you handle those moments when you aren't feeling super confident as a homeschooler? And you know what? I have to say that those moments come whether you are a new homeschooler or whether you are a veteran homeschooler. I'm going on my 15th year, and there are times when everyone kind of feels like that. But to that, I just say to you, take a look back and think about all of the things that your children have accomplished. And they don't necessarily have to look anything like what would happen in school. What life skills did your children learn? What interests do they have? What fun activities did you do together? What is a new skill that they may have picked up, or a new hobby that they have really been investing their time in? You can also take a look back. If you're anything like me, I have thousands of photos in the gallery on my phone. Thankfully, it has a lot of memory. And go through your photos, and you can just see all of the learning happening just right there in your gallery. And lastly, if you are ever feeling kind of a lack of confidence about homeschooling, take a look at what's happening in public schools. That right there should take care of anything. I thought I was done with Brandy's questions, but I see that I missed one. One was, does your family have any favorite educational board games? And we do, but you're probably going to think that we are pretty boring, because most of our favorite educational board games are just those classic games. There's nothing kind of new on my list other than maybe one that I'm going to mention. So the first one is Parcheesi. I think it's a great way to teach children strategy and critical thinking skills, or what I like to call reasoning. Another one is Clue. Again, a great one for reasoning skills. We also like Monopoly. Okay, my children like Monopoly. I used to like Monopoly, but I no longer have the patience for 2-3 hour games. So whenever they play Monopoly, I'm usually not there. But it is good for teaching children, obviously counting money if they're younger children, economics. My cat is meowing in the background. Sorry. It is also strategy. So many things that you can be learning from Monopoly also. Yahtzee is a great one for teaching multiplication and adding, especially for younger children, but we play it with the older kids just because it's fun. Now, this is the one that is not really one of the traditional ones. It's actually a game called Horrified, and my daughter's fiance recently bought it, and he bought the cryptids version. I don't think it's called cryptids, but that's what it is. It has like Mothman in it, and Bigfoot, and the Chupacabra, and he knew it was right up my alley. So he bought it so that we could all play it together. I mean, it's his game, but he meant because he likes to play board games too. So we played it the other day, and you would think, well, what is there, educational about a game called Horrified with cryptids in it? Well, I mean, if your child is doing a unit study on cryptozoology, hey, there you go. My 23-year-old son, when he was in high school, he actually did cryptozoology as an elective. But on top of that, that is a cooperative game. So you're not playing against everyone else. You are learning to work together in that game. And that is what I think is the most educational aspect of that game. And that's why I really enjoyed it. Although I was pretty confused at first. You can tell that I'm older and my children play more games, because they picked up on it like that. And half the game I was sitting there like, huh? I'm like, yeah, just do whatever you think is best. But my kids really enjoyed it. Next one, this one is my ultimate favorite, Trivial Pursuit. I love just trivia. That's the only way I can say it. I'm not very competitive when it comes to games unless it's trivia games. Then I am extremely competitive because I want to win every trivia game. So yes, that's a game that we really like. And yeah, my children pick up just knowledge on all areas in Trivial Pursuit, because there's geography in there, and history, and the arts, and literature, and sports. I think there's like hobbies in there, and I don't know what I'm missing, but it really does cover everything in that game, and that's a lot of fun too. And then the last one that I have down is Apples to Apples. Apples to Apples is really good for teaching children language. And again, it's a lot of fun. It's funny, depending on what some people pick for the answers. But it really does help children with their vocabulary. The younger children, obviously. But even with older children, it's good reinforcement for that sort of thing. Okay, so the next question is from B and J Andrews. And it says, how do you avoid burnout? My 13-year-old son and I just completed our first year of homeschooling. We live rural and are having trouble finding clubs and groups. By the end of this school year, we were less than pleasant towards each other. The burnout is real. It is. I completely know how real burnout is. It was so real to me that after 2 years of homeschooling, I originally sent my children back to school for 2 years. That's how much I overdid it. So I totally get it. So first of all, a great way to avoid burnout is to not try to replicate school. So many people do that, and I was one of them. And you have to come to a point where you realize, I took my children out of school because it wasn't working. So why am I trying to do the same thing with them? So don't try to replicate school. You don't need to fit 8 subjects in each and every day. Really work it down to the very basics. What do your children enjoy? What is it that they need to work on the most? What skills would you like for them to have? And just spend a lot of time together doing fun things. Again, homeschooling does not have to look like school. Remember to keep the home in it. That's the most important aspect. Another way to avoid burnout is to do year-round homeschooling. I know you're probably thinking, well, that's the exact opposite. Well, with year-round homeschooling, you can take breaks whenever you need to. When I first started homeschooling, I tried to follow the regular school schedule, and yeah, it got to be a lot going so long without any breaks other than the weekend. So what I have found is I found like a nice mixture of the two. We have something called a Sabbath schedule. So we homeschool 6 weeks and then we take a 1-week break. And then we will homeschool 6 weeks and then we take a 1-week break. And we do that from July until the end of May. And then we will take a 6-week break around summertime, and then a 6-week break around Christmas. So that is really helpful, because if you are doing that Sabbath schedule, you know that every 6 weeks you are getting a 1-week break at the least. So, as stress starts building up, maybe as the children start bickering, everyone knows that week-long break is coming up, and it's usually coming up pretty soon once you get to that point where you're starting to feel that burnout. So that is another thing that really does help. Now, living rurally, yeah, I know that's pretty tough. And I have to say that I lived in the city before and wasn't really able to find any groups or any co-ops that my children would have been interested in. So, but I understand that it's even harder in a rural area. I do like the biggest social activity, I guess you could say, that my children have right now is our church. We don't live in a big town. We live in a very small town, but our church is very interactive, like outside of, it's not just Sundays, we actually do life together. So that is really important, to find a church where you do life together and you don't just meet up on Sundays. Another thing, in rural areas, a lot of times 4-H's are pretty abundant. So have you ever looked into a 4-H? That could be something that you might want to do. Also, I know that there are wild and free homeschool groups, and a lot of them are in the more rural areas just because they do like to be outside a lot. Now, I will have to say that living in a rural area, you're probably used to having to drive pretty far to get anywhere, to get to the grocery store, to get to a retail store, to go to the movies. So this is just one of those other areas where, yes, you're going to have to invest some time and, unfortunately, in this day and age, gas to get to these groups once you do find them. And that includes co-ops too. You might have to travel, unfortunately. But really, if it's really that bad, you could consider creating your own group. That's what I recently did. I just started a homeschool support group at my church just because my children, were having interactions and everything, but I wanted to be able to encourage other homeschool moms. So I started that group more for the moms, but our children play together while we're there. So yeah, that's another idea, is you can always start your own group and try to enlist some other families, maybe even families who aren't homeschooling right now, but might be thinking about it. Because I also invited families like that to our homeschool support group. And you could ask your local library if you could maybe advertise it there, or if you are on any social media, you could advertise it there and see where that takes you. Okay, so the last one that I'm going to cover today is by Ruth B. And she said, "What are your thoughts on university and higher education?" I'm sure most of you know what I'm thinking. Here's the deal. University and higher education is pushed way more than it should be. I'm going to say it again. It is pushed way more than it should be. Yes, there are careers that you absolutely need university for. You really wouldn't want to have a doctor performing surgery on you who did not have that higher learning. That is completely understandable. But we're at the point where we are pushing pretty much any teenager into college once they graduate. That actually happened to me. I was pushed into college. I really didn't want to go. I was expected to go because I was a good student and, I was smart. So I did. I went to college for 2 months and then I dropped out because I had absolutely no interest in it. So really, I would say think about trades, think about entrepreneurial or not aspects. Teach your children about entrepreneurship. I can't think today. I should probably start writing notes down other than just lists of games and stuff. But anyway, yeah, we need to just get past this idea that children have to go to college in order to make something of themselves. No, they don't, especially when we see what is happening in the colleges nowadays. It's not about education anymore for the most part. It's just about indoctrination into whatever mindset the powers that be want them to have at that moment. That's what college is about. That's why you see so many people who have college degrees following that mainstream narrative that other people can see and they're like, whoa, what are they doing? But if you spend more time in these institutions, you have had more time to be indoctrinated, and you really have a hard time finding any sort of clarity in the things that are happening around you that just don't make sense, because you have just kind of been brainwashed into believing whatever you're told. And also, a lot of college is about patting students on the back, telling them how smart they are because they paid for this college degree. And then they move on and they refuse to accept what other people tell them because they will look down on them because they have a college degree and the other person doesn't. So that's an entire thing too. Now, I have children who went to college. My oldest son, now he got his associate's degree. He wants to at some point go back for his bachelor's, but he was happy with his associate's degree. And I have my second oldest. She is currently in college right now. She just finished her second semester, made Dean's List both times, and she's actually she wants to be a game designer. So that's something, it will help her to learn how to do that and to get her foot in the door for these companies. And then Some of my other children have no interest at all in college, and I'm totally fine with that as long as they know what it is that they want to do with their lives. Um, and my 17-year-old daughter, she wants to become a pediatric nurse because she has chronic illness, and so she has had a lot of interactions with nurses on the pediatric unit, and so she has seen how much they changed her life, so she would like to do the same thing. So obviously, yes, for that she is going to need college too, and we're just going to have to make sure, that she is really prepared and has a good foundation, a good moral foundation before she heads in that direction. But yeah, you won't ever find me being disappointed in my children who decided not to go to college, because I felt the same way that they did. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.